Hi, my name is Brian Tomaszewski. In this video, I want to give you some ideas for how you can get started with doing your own GIS projects. This video is designed for people who have taken some introductory classes or trainings on GIS concepts and software tools and are now looking to start GIS projects of their own design, as opposed to following examples provided by an instructor through a well-structured GIS course or lesson. In this video, I'll discuss 4 things. First, we'll talk about the problem, or more accurately, the spatial problem that you are looking to try to solve with GIS. Next, I'll give you some ideas on how to begin doing some background research for your GIS project. So as you begin problem solving with GIS, you're doing so from an informed perspective. After this, I'll talk about data. I think you'll find that data is always going to be the most challenging aspect of any GIS project. Therefore, we'll talk about several aspects of data in terms of the relationship of data to your GIS project. I'll then show you how to apply these 3 ideas using a GIS project case study about water resources in a place called Mafraq Jordan. GIS is fundamentally a problem-solving and decision-making tool. It's important to keep this point in mind as you begin to start your GIS project. Therefore, take some time to think about the problem and what exactly you're trying to solve using GIS. Or perhaps, what decisions need to be made that rely on the power of GIS and mapping to help inform those decisions. Ultimately, think about what it is you're trying to achieve. And also, who are you trying to achieve it for? Are you trying to make maps for members of your community? Are you doing a detailed scientific study? Or are you doing the project just for your own curiosity and to learn more about GIS? Having an understanding of your problem will help guide you along in the process of developing your GIS project. And you're going to hear me say several times in this video, keep in mind that the scope of your project and how you approach your project will change as you progress through the project. For example, you might find a dataset or a GIS technique you are not aware of that changes how you address your spatial problem. Although it is tempting to want to dive right in and start using GIS tools to make maps, it's very helpful to do even a little bit of background research on your problem with something as simple as a Google search. I've often found that when students don't really do any background research, they wind up duplicating something else that someone else has already done. Had they done even a little bit of background research, they could have started using existing ideas as a starting point for their own project. Additionally, doing some background research will help you to identify datasets you may not have been aware of, how your problem could be relevant to other people or organizations interested in the same problem, and give you ideas on GIS tools, tips, and methods that you can use in GIS that you maybe never had considered. And all of these things could be an opportunity for you to build your GIS skill set and career as you begin to work on your own GIS project. Of course, data is going to be the main driver of your GIS project. All too often, I've seen the greatest GIS project ideas have to be significantly modified simply due to the lack of GIS datasets available to support the project, in combination with other factors, such as the time it would take to create data and deadlines for when the project is due. Furthermore, when considering GIS data for your project, keep the following points in mind. Is the dataset at a spatial resolution sufficient for your project? For example, if you're working on a community level project, country level datasets will not be relevant. Also, is your dataset at a quality level sufficient for your project? For example, is the dataset from an authoritative source such as a government agency, or is it from an unknown person of unknown background? These types of questions are best answered by GIS metadata. Now, it's beyond the scope of this video to talk about GIS metadata, but I've included a card where you can learn more about GIS metadata in GIS. Also, later in the video, I'll give you some ideas on where to look for specific sources of GIS data for your GIS project. In the next part of this video, I'll apply the ideas I just discussed to a case study related to water resources in Mafraq Jordan. I'll show you how I apply these ideas so you can see the process that I follow when getting a GIS project started. Ideally, you'll be able to take this process and apply it to your own GIS problems and decision making. First, let's talk about the problem, or more importantly, let's talk about the spatial aspects of this problem. Water resources are inherently spatial. For example, think about something as basic as turning on a faucet to use water. The water has to first come from some type of reservoir, travel through a water pipe network to your building, and eventually exit out of a building to some type of wastewater facility. You can expand this basic spatial process to all types of water, such as sewers, collecting rainwater in storm drains, and irrigating farmland. Protecting water resources is also a very spatial problem if you think about how fresh drinking water can be threatened by pollution. With this understanding of the spatial nature of a water problem, let's now talk more about the specific case study and how the specific case study will inform the datasets we collect to address the spatial problem. If you're not familiar with Jordan, it's a country located in the Middle East. Jordan has had a long water resource issue due to the fact of it being mainly a desert environment, high population growth in the country, and an influx of refugees from several surrounding regions over several decades. Mafraq is a city located in northern Jordan near the Syrian border. Mafraq has particularly seen a high population growth in recent years through the influx of Syrian refugees. Like the rest of Jordan, water resources in Mafraq, such as access to clean drinking water, is a recurring spatial problem. So when I began to investigate the problem of water resources in Mafraq further, I started with some background knowledge I have of Jordan. Keep in mind that you can always be the best person to find out more about your problem, especially if it's a problem that you live with on a day-to-day basis or have familiarity with based on your work, education, or lived experiences. For example, I've done humanitarian work in Jordan over the past several years. Let me show you now how I went about doing some background research on water resources in Mafraq. This was actually a topic I was not familiar with before I created this video.